Marcia, take it away. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. I got to get rid of, got it on my screen already. Anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity again. And it looks like it's going to be probably a little bit of a repeat for many of you, because I see the names on the screen as basically board members. So hopefully it's a little bit of update for what you got a few months ago. Anyway, to go back to the reason why I did this, I am a part of Stanislaus County Office of Education district committee on reorganization, and that deals with boundary disputes, and it deals with, in this case, also whenever districts were being required of the school districts rather than the at-large elections for school districts, then each district had to draw up original maps, and every district then had to have those maps, or the process of making those maps, approved by our committee, and then it would go on to the state and everything then would be okayed. So that was what got me started in this whole process. And the city, as Pat mentioned in her questions, the reason why this happens is because of the census that's done every 10 years. And in 2009, the city of Modesto put together a Citizens Districting Commission. And so it is, even though we are redistricting now, it is still called the Citizens Districting Commission. And it is bound by the bylaws that were originally set up in 2009. And I applied as a citizen because of my interest in what had happened with the school districts. And I was approved to be a part of the commission. And 3 of the districts have 2 members, and 3 of the districts have 1 member on the commission. So it has been a broad spectrum of people, interested people. And curiously, one of the young men that is on the commission is a high school government teacher, and he has applied to be a part of other commissions. And this is the first one he has been allowed to be a part of. And so it is something that you can be in more than one commission if you have an interest in something like that. So originally we were, let's see, our first meeting was in October 21st. We were approved by the city council in September, but our first meeting wasn't until October 21st. And so the first meeting was for our commissioners, was set up to show us about the Brown Act and the things we could do and couldn't do as an elected or an appointed board from a governmental agency. And having been on the school board, I was aware of all of the parameters that were necessary to be taken care of for that. So at that time, we set up dates for the meetings, and we had to make sure that the city council and the city's board meetings that were being held were already on the calendar. So we took up spaces on the calendar that were not already taken up. So our next meeting after that, October 21st, was November the 4th. And that is where we elected a chair and a co-chair. And then we learned how to be a commissioner. And we also learned what a COI was. A COI is a community of interest. And this is especially effective and needed for districting of communities or districts of school districts or whatever, so that if there is a group of people that have a common interest and they are within a common boundary, the reference was if it's a group of renters and they live all over the city, then that is not a community of interest. It would have to be a community of interest that would be localized within a particular district. And then those, we'd have to make sure that if that was something, that those people were being represented, and we wouldn't break up that community of interest by splitting them into different city council districts. With the city of Modesto, with the information that we got from the community, there really was no actual community of interest that we really had to be concerned with when we were looking at how to tweak the map or to change the map. We held public input meetings, 2 in December and 2 in January. And the first one we held was at the King Kennedy Center. We felt it very necessary to take the meetings to the public rather than to have the public, come to the meetings. So we tried to schedule the meetings in locations that would draw interested people from that particular district, city council district. And so the first one we held was at King Kennedy Center. And we had a group, I didn't specifically count, but there were probably 20 to 25 people that came, and they were interested in what the presentation was. And at each one of these meetings, the presentation was the same by the Redistricting Partners, is what the name of the company or the name of the business was that handled the process for us. They're the ones who know all the legalities. They're the ones who know how to handle all the different aspects of what districting does to a community. And so they made sure that at each meeting, they presented exactly the same information, unless questions came up at one, and then we would tweak it to go forward from that. The other thing that was provided for every meeting was a Spanish translation. And so there was an interpreter at every meeting, and he translated all of our information, and it was broadcast over a Spanish airwaves or whatever that would be able to take that information to a Spanish speaking public. And then after those meetings, let's see, then we had a meeting at City Hall to handle the downtown area. And then we had one on January the 8th at the American Legion Hall, which is down, if you're not familiar, it's down by the Gallo Winery in the sort of the airport district down between the park, Tuolumne River Regional Park, and Yosemite Avenue. And at that time, we had one interested citizen, and that happened to be a former member, and she might even be a member still, Joan Goldsmith. I think that's her name. Not absolutely, but anyway, I recognized her as somebody from the league that I had some interactions with previously. And so the public was invited. The public did not really show up. And so that was sort of a disappointing thing. And then, of course, Zoom was forced upon us again because of COVID. And all the rest of the meetings then were held on Zoom. So we had one scheduled for the Stanislaus Veterans Center in the coffee and Sylvan and coffee area. And that one was by Zoom. And then we had a public meeting to actually adopt the proposed map that we decided on. And that was a Zoom meeting as well. So there was not a lot of public interaction that we sort of anticipated we would have. But from my perspective as a commissioner, and having lived here these last, since 1975, the amount of change within our districts themselves over the past 10 years has been extremely minimal, because everything closed down in 2008 and 9. So from 2010 to 2020, there was not a lot of change that took place within the city of Modesto in the way of population growth. And the maps that are drawn take into consideration the actual population, but the map itself is determined by the voting age population. And so the voting age population really did not change very much within each district. And one of the things that the state requires is that within a district, there has to be less than a 10% variation of populations, I should say, when you're dividing the districts up, there needs to be less than a 10% variation within the districts, with their makeup of the population with age, as well as whether there are different ethnicities that are in those areas. And so the map that was originally drawn for 2010 had a range of 7.5, which was well within the 10%. And because of that, we were able, if we chose to just roll that map over and use that particular map. We decided, because of some of the commissioners who were wanting to make sure that the original map had been drawn with like areas connected to each other, that we felt that there were some areas that were not as common, had common backgrounds as necessary. And so we did some tweaking of that original map. And this is where there are a variety of maps that are on the Modesto City website. That is, and the sub section is the Modesto Citizens Districting Commission website. And so at that space, you can look to see what those different maps were that we drew. What the changes that were made, basically, District 1 and District 5 had no changes made whatsoever. But 2, 3, 4, and 6 is where we made the changes. The major change that we felt was necessary was taking what is known as the airport district away from District 4, which was more the La Loma area, and moving it into the downtown district, which is District 2. And
Marcia, would you like me to
Yes.
show the map to the group?
Well, this, I don't think, I'm not sure yet.
Okay. You tell me when. You
Let's
let me
wait
know
till
when. Yep, you let me know
when I finish this, then we'll bring it up and then I can sort of show people where it is. Okay. And then because we did that change, that shifted the population and the makeup of the population. So once you shift one little tweak in one part or one district, then you have to go back and balance everything out. And so then that put District 3 and District 4's numbers into a little bit of a tweak. And we decided that District 6, it was zigzagging in some different areas. And so we wanted to straighten those lines. The method that we used to determine where those lines basically would go would be the major streets. So in our opinion, like if the area around Briggsmore Avenue, which runs east and west, at one time there was a section that straddled both sides of Briggsmore Avenue. But because in our opinion, Briggsmore is such a dividing line that there's really not a lot in our city, there's not a lot of contiguous or problems between one side of Briggsmore or the other side. And there's really not a whole lot in common between those two sides. You've got neighborhoods on one side of Briggsmore that really don't communicate with neighborhoods on the opposite, on the north side, south and north side of Briggsmore. So those were the kinds of things that we looked at to determine how we were going to bring up or how we were going to justify the new maps that we looked at. The company that we used took our information from these different meetings that we had and input from the commissioners, and they took those ideas and did some redrawing of the maps. At the same time, it was information that was put out to the public to also be able to draw their own maps. The interesting part about the ability to do that for this particular redistricting was that technology has advanced so much so since the 2010 census that there is a map drawing capability now called District R, and that allows you to hover your mouse over some spot on a district and it will tell you how many people there are, how many of voting age. And if you want to draw your map, you start drawing your map and it tells you exactly how far you can go or how wide how far north and south you can go. But as soon as you start doing that to that one little district, then it shifts everything else. So the balancing that needs to be done, if you yourself are trying to draw new district maps, starting from scratch and just drawing new district maps is a process that can be done, but it's extremely time consuming. And one of the commissioners did try to draw totally new maps and shift them all around, but it wasn't turning out to be the kind of situation that she wanted it to be. And when we looked at what the company that did it on a regular basis came up with, it was a much simpler process for us to be able to determine which way to go. So let's see, Yosemite Boulevard became an area where we tweaked a little bit. And like I said, the airport district was moved from District 4 to District 2. The north-south boundary, I guess maybe District 5 and 6 did have something. We decided to use Rose Avenue because the original map sort of zigzagged back and forth across Rose Avenue. And we decided because Rose Avenue is a fairly distinct north-south route, then we used that as more of a dividing line rather than shifting back and forth from the original map. And the other major change was on the east side between District 4 and District 6 and Briggsmore. And as Briggsmore goes beyond Claus Road, then it got tweaked a little bit. So we shifted some things around there. So our ability to show what maps were going to be put out to the public happened after that American Legion meeting on January the 8th. So between January the 8th and January, let's see, the 22nd, we had the other meetings and there was no real outside public input, but that's where we started. That's where we were tweaking these different various lines to be able to balance them and to also do what we felt was a better representation for the people within those districts. And then February the 2nd, the public is when we actually adopted what we thought would be the best map to send to the city. And so March 1st, the map that we've chosen goes to the city council. And it's at that time that they will be, they won't have had all the background information unless they, for some reason, have gone into the city's redistricting or the districting commission's website and taken a look at what we did. Then they would know the background as to why we chose what the maps that we did. But they will discuss the map at the 1st of March, and then on the 8th of March would be a public hearing to actually adopt the map. Unless for some reason they do not wish to adopt the map that we chose, then we have to go back to whatever suggestions they might have. And then the actual adoption of the map would happen sometime in April. So we can either open it up for questions now, or if you want, we can show you the map and it will hopefully come up large enough, because sometimes it's hard. And with my eyesight, what it is, let me tell you, trying to work on a Zoom screen and trying to get the map to be big enough so I can see where the lines are was really tricky when that was being presented. So Amy's going to share the map. So here's the new map that has been the one recommended to go. So Amy, can you enlarge the, okay. And what you might see is, okay, sorry about that, Amy, shrink it back down a little bit because people see the green part at the very bottom. That's number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's because that is a part that is a part of the city. And so it's connected to number 2. All the little white areas that are within the map, those are unincorporated areas within the city of Modesto. So that's why the green part, which is number 2, looks like it's a bunch of little islands out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. But they are all connected to each other except for the bottom part that's down. Yes, Amy, thanks for showing that part. So now you can go up to the main part of the city. And if you can enlarge that, you can see. So I'll start down here in number 2, which is the green part. And this area that is, Amy, move, yeah, right, move over just a little bit to your right. Okay, that the area to the right in the green is the airport district. And that originally was up in number 4. But because in order for a map to be correct, it has to have a connection to every single space. So there's these little lines that are drawing from the major part, yes, up to the Yosemite Avenue. And then this area down here, they have a connection with a road or whatever that manages to make them a part of District 2. Because we took that away from number 4, district number 4, then we had to readjust number 3 and 4 to make everything right. So between the green and the purple, that goes north and south over here where the word Modesto is, Amy. Okay, where the green and the purple come together, then we tweaked that a little bit because it took, Sunrise becomes what, south of Scenic. It was jogging in between two or a street. So there's some houses on the east side of the street that were in District 4, and basically we thought they really were more connected to District 2, just because at that space, District 4 was the old Scenic General Hospital and the mortuary part. So it wasn't really a whole lot of homes. So we straightened that line up a little bit. And then if you go up to number 6, Amy. Okay, so the white section there between 5 and 6 is unincorporated area, but we took for the most part between 5 and 6 to that line is basically a Rose Avenue line that takes us, that's major dividing line between 5 and 6. And then between 4 and 6, that line going east and west is basically Briggsmore Avenue. And because the little part of number 6 that's east of the purple, to the right side of the purple, that was originally in number 4, but for numbers and for trying to figure out whether that was really much of a difference between the people in 4 and 6, we felt that that we had to balance the numbers. And so therefore it's all, we moved that little section up into number 6. It was originally in number 4. So that is what the map looks like. If you go in, if you really zoom in, it will give you the street names, but it's really hard to see that. And I suggested that for the city council presentation, they actually have a large enough depiction of the map to show city council where those lines are, what streets they are actually using as the divisions of those particular different council districts.
Have to darken them or something. Yeah.
So that's sort of the gist as to what has taken place. It will be, questions were from the community. Well, there was a larger increase in the population of district. I believe it was District 2, and it was basically the population growth was in non-voting aged people, therefore young children. I'm assuming young children. So babies were being born in a district that was a little bit more. The numbers were greater for that age population. But when you looked at the voting age population, there was not that much difference in the growth. And all of those different kinds of figures are all broken out on this PowerPoint that Amy said was 56 slides long and really had a lot of information that was, for somebody just going into it, I think it would be really hard to deal with. And I, for some reason, cannot remember specifically what the new percentage is that's under 10%, but we dropped it, I believe, from like 7.5 to 5 point something or another. So it's still well within, well under the 10% range of what that variation needed to be. So hopefully, I don't think there's going to be any questions or any comments about it, but let me tell you, the next time this happens in 2020, 2030, 31, it's probably going to be a totally different kind of process, because by that time, the city will have added Tivoli or partially added Tivoli, which is going to impact 5 and 6 probably quite a bit. And there could be more growth in other parts of the city that are going to demand that these districts boundaries get a different kind of a shift. So open it up for questions and hopefully I'll have an answer.
So Marcia, so far in the chat, Jane was confirming who is the current city council member that represents District 2.
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that. See, and that's in my notes somewhere, in my agenda somewhere. And it was like, oh, District 2, hold on. I might have to get back to you on that because I cannot remember. We had one, after we got started, we didn't care who represented which district. I want to say.
According to the website, it's Tony Madrigal.
Oh, well, that would be the city council person. Yeah, we didn't really deal with city council, and basically all of the people, because we did not tweak the basic outside boundaries. None of the present city council members have been shifted in their districts, if that's what the question was basically, or alluding to, whether the district council members were having to shift districts. That will not happen this time.
Okay, next question from Julie. Who makes the presentation to city council, the paid consultant or the committee chair?
When they asked us who was going to want to be present at the city council meeting, and we did not know whether it was going to be Zoom or whether it be in person. We still don't know whether it'll be in Zoom or in person. Nobody really wanted to be a part of or needed to be a part of that. So I am assuming that the redistricting partners plus the city representatives of Jessica Nunez is the city attorney's office. She's the one who started the process for us and was the one who started each meeting and made sure that the minutes were approved and all of that. So I'm not sure whether Jessica is going to, or whether it'll be one of the representatives from redistricting partners to do it. I said I would like to attend, but then in today's emails, I got a request from the county Office of Education, and they're asking for March 1st to be the date that they approve the new Stanislaus County Office of Education district map. So I don't know whether that's going to be in conflict. I let them know if it's not in conflict, I will be able to be there. So
excellent. Other questions, because those were the only two that I saw in the chat.
Okay. Well, I appreciate.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I would like to ask one question. How was the process? Were people, did they listen and respect and different point of views come into play? Was it a very cordial group, or was this were there any issues that you guys had to work through as a committee? Because sometimes I think people come with their own whatevers. Mm-hmm. I won't call it agendas, whatever, but so how did people adhere to the rules and mostly to being respectful?
It was extremely respectful. It was extremely easy to get along with everybody. Nobody had any contentions. The one representative from District 2 was the one who wanted to make sure, and I think he probably put in the most time of driving around with his map and making sure, which road was really, where it stopped and started. He was the one who originally thought District 3 and District 2 needed to be tweaked a little bit, but if they had done that, it would have affected Martone School. And he felt that the people who are a family in Martone School, that would be more disruptive to divide them up than it would be to do, going with 2 and 4 with the drawing of the 2 and 4 map. So basically, everybody was respectful of everybody's opinions, and it was sometimes some of the commissioners had more questions than others, or they weren't, uh, the explanation might not have been as clear to some, but everybody from the county, the city staff, and the commissioners themselves, it was really great. We did change one meeting that was originally scheduled for a Thursday, and we switched it to the Wednesday because it was the high school teacher who had an open house scheduled. Then he didn't know at the time that, it was one of those, it was the calendar for the school district was changed. And so he checked to see, and we were able to switch the meeting to accommodate his schedule as well. So all kinds of accommodations, I think, were made by the city. It was a very agreeable group of people to work with. And it was a pleasure to have been on that commission.
I have a question. Probably won't make too much difference, but a couple of the city council members have termed out, have they not? So that there will be new candidates running, and it probably wouldn't make much difference because the boundaries doesn't seem like they've made major issues. Do you know which ones are termed out?
I know I've seen something in the B, and I couldn't tell you offhand, Marie, which ones they are, but I do know that there could be some changes, but you're right. The districts themselves are basically still the same. And so that I don't think is going to be a problem at this stage.
So somebody running would be running in the same,
Right.
It was kind of an area that the predecessor would have had.
Right. Yes, as far as we can tell. And we won't know that for sure until, after the filing manages to close as to whether there's going to be a problem getting, when I started with the school districts, I usually had two questions. One, what happens if nobody decides to run in that district? And
Yep.
they assured me, no, there would be no problem whatsoever. They'd always be able to find somebody. Well, this has been a real problem because especially the
Yes.
smaller school districts, when you start dividing those neighborhoods up, it's hard to find somebody. And then the other thing that came up with school districts that I was not aware of, I probably should have been, but it wasn't. Knights Ferry was having they could not get they were a 5-member school board, and they could not get 5 members. People would move out, and so they would leave the board, or somebody was appointed and thought they could do it, and then they found out they couldn't do it. And so the question was, well, you've got parents, why is it that the parents can't do it? Well, most of the, I want to say it's almost 80%, I think, of the children that go to Knights Ferry are Oakdale residents who have inter-district agreements for their children to go to Knights Ferry. And in order to be on a school board, you have to be a resident in the district. So they requested to go from a 5-member board to a 3-member board. And so we approved that to happen. So it went to the state, and I do believe the state will allow them to do that. But yeah, these kinds of things are going to be taking place, but you have to get people who are willing to step forward, and be a part of those different kinds of situations. Hold on,
I'd like to make just a comment. You talked about the community of interest, and then you brought up the Martone School. That would clearly be a community of interest that would need to be respected.
Right, and that was one thing that
that whole concept, as I understand it, it would be exactly the example that you gave.
Right, and the example the redistricting partners would give at each one was a group of renters in an area. Now, and I don't think Modesto has this. In big cities, yes, you've got renters that are located in one geographic region, maybe, and then other places, it's suburbia or whatever. So if you were a group of renters, then that would be a community of interest. If you're just a group of people, and that was basically the comments that came in from the community basically were general of the whole city. They weren't specifically of that particular area. There was a homelessness they were concerned about. There was the city streets they were concerned about. But those are things that are not, they're not within a district, they're within the whole city. So those were the kinds of things that were a little bit hard. I asked why we didn't get any B representation, there were no articles. And I'm assuming that it's because we really don't have any reporters, that there were no reporters ever at any of our meetings. And when I saw the information in the B about Turlock's redistricting, and I thought, gee whiz, Turlock's got all this information in the Modesto B about what's going on, and the map was there, and we didn't have anything. So when I brought up the question to the city staff, they said they did not go to the B to have the B, cover the story. And they had everything out on social media. So they felt that social media was the place where they would be able to get the greatest representation, which I don't think, in my opinion, was really it. And I don't know whether the B is going to come back at the city council meeting when this map is, put forward and question, why it was. I don't know whether there'll be anything or not. So, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
My experience lately is the B likes to just write an editorial. Wait till it's all over and
Right.
then write an editorial of what they think about it.
Well, I do know they do not have hardly any reporters left, yeah. So it's very hard for them to cover local, you get the report of the crime that's taking place, because that's all from the police department. They can gather all that information from the police department. But when you find out really what's going on in the community, there's really not too many reporters who are left anymore to be able to let us know what's really going on. Now, I suspect that's not true if you do the online. I mean, I have the online subscription, but I hate reading off of a computer, so I don't get into that, but maybe it's all there.
So I was disappointed in the fact that you did a lot of going out and reaching out to the public, but as usual, the public did not step up, other than at the King Kennedy Center where you had maybe about 20 people, you said. It seems like there was just a lack of, being involved or finding out or being, and that's a shame, because that is an indication too of where we're at with what gets people interested and motivated and, community service. And it's like you said, maybe they'll get more as Modesto grows. And I think some of Turlock's thing is because it's just the city council is in upheaval. And so I think it just, it generates some ooh kind of reading.
Well,
Don't you think that because there was not a major shift or a major political area looking at saying, we need to look at this really carefully, that perhaps, it just
maybe that's the reason, but I would hope
he might have come in.
Yeah.
But
Right, I think if there's
would
not
hope
going to
people would be
be, if there's not going
curious.
to be any controversy about it, or not any perceived controversy, and there's nobody jumping up and down and saying, I'm not represented over here, come represent me. Or being stoked by some false information online. I think maybe it's a good thing that we don't have people jumping up and down asking for things that aren't.
Well, and there's two things. The districts, I think, were really very, very well defined the first time we did them in 2010. I was on the city charter thing at that point. And I think your point is well taken, that there hasn't been any major growth or anything else that has to be accounted for. So you just.
Yeah, well, and speaking from a previous school board member, we would have meetings twice a month, 12 months a year. We never had, maybe the public would show up, maybe one meeting, and basically, unless their child was being affected by some, program or some situation that was taking place in the district, nobody ever came to those meetings. Take a look at school board meetings today, and the only reason people are really going to those school board meetings is because they're concerned about masks, either for or against it. If those things were not a part of our society, in my opinion, today, people would not be showing up at school board meetings still. So, until it affects you or your child or whatever, until then oftentimes people don't really get involved. So.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the outcome at the city council meeting.
Right.
That will be, something to pay attention to. And I think that better understanding of what went into the process. And I think what you represent is, people should get active and get involved. There's commissions
Right.
to serve on, or and it can be quite a learning experience, as well as look how you have shared with us and others. So much appreciated, Marcia. I think that it's very important information.
Well,
for all of us.
I'm glad I'm the age I am, because I really don't think I would want to be on the one that's going to come up in 2031. So that
I
could be
totally
a little
understand.
bit contested. So
Yes, I totally get it.
Mhm.
Well, so thank you very much. And unless we have anything else, I just want to share one thing, and that is we do have our speaker for March 23rd. And I went ahead, pursuant to Miss Carly's idea, and I met with and talked with this gal, and her name is Miss Paula Lee. She's been a member of the League of Women Voters for over 20 years, and she focuses on electoral reforms. So her work is all about studying electoral systems, of which the result of it is that the California state and national is taking a position, which is to support alternatives to plurality voting, such as the ranked choice voting. So that will be the focus of our next meeting, March 23rd. And she will speak to that. And I didn't realize there was already a position being taken, but there is. And so it'll be good to hear from her. What is it? How does it affect us? And why do they consider that it is really something that will be, I was thinking of it the other day. This could be the answer to when they had that thing in the paper about the mayoral vote, and how the February one, she didn't get as much. And then but wonder if there had been a ranking. It might have changed, not having to do that one. It might have, so there's a lot of possibilities in this new way of looking at your voting. So I think it will be interesting. And
Pat, I have a question. The state position, if I recall it, was very specific, actually, as ranked choice voting should be a target. But it seems to me that last year, they kind of made a more generic statement on the position.
Right.
Julie, do you remember that?
And it's, I'll read you what she wrote, which
Yeah,
the position, which is to support alternatives to plurality voting, such as ranked vote.
Yeah,
So,
but I
choice
thought when they
voting.
changed it, they didn't identify ranked choice voting specifically, but they had a more generic terminology.
right.
Yeah, double
So
check
she will,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well, it
that's
should be
was a
interesting
good
to find
idea.
out more about it, because it may be something that, and there's a lot of cities that are already using this. And so
Well, I used to write
thank
letters
you, Ms.
with supporting it years ago. And then it sounded to me when the State League did their redoing last year, that they kind of steered away, making it more than one alternative as opposed to a preference. So, I don't know.
Well, okay, so that will be our speaker, Marcia.
Pat, I failed to say something to Ally, or to thank Ally for getting the B to change what was
Oh, yes.
in the paper, because I never read the little around the region.
Princeton
But
Hall.
I thought, well, I'll just double check and make sure they've got something in there about the meeting tonight. And
Oh,
when
yes.
I saw that I was on the Stanislaus County Redistricting Committee, I thought, I don't think they're gonna I don't think the county committee is gonna want to know that I was not even a part of that. So I got information back to Ally, and they did a correction in today's paper. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
sent it
thank
at
you, Ally.
11:30 at night, so they got it.
Okay, well, thank
Yeah.
you.
And through some of your help, Ally, we are getting, people are paying attention, what's coming up next in terms of the meet and learn. So obviously we thank you very much for those connections. It was also Interlock.
I found it,
It
Matthew
was also
Harrington seems
Interlock
to be
Journal.
doing the region right now.
Oh,
And I especially thanked him, and then he sent me a very nice little note back and said he was just all the best tonight for this meeting. So it was really nice to have that support from the B.
Good.
That's good.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you to Miss Amy, always our guru.
Yeah.
One of these days, I'll learn how to do Zoom, and hopefully that will be when Zoom is over. No, just kidding.